Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Paul Teasdale. And Paul and I are going to talk about high-performance lessons from Formula One.
Indeed.
Or F1, as some people call it. Paul, before we get into it, where can people find you?
Probably the easiest place, either LinkedIn. So you'll find me there. There's not many Paul Teasdale. I think I'm under Paul James Teasdale on LinkedIn. And if you go to my website, paulteasdale.co.uk, that's the best place to get in touch.
And Paul, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. And I'm in West London. I live in Teddington, so Woking and places like that is not very far away.
Indeed.
So the McLaren office isn't very far. It must be what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes drive from me.
Indeed, I was in Teddington on Wednesday last week. So yeah, it's
oh right, okay. Yeah. So you used to work at McLaren?
I did, yeah. In fact, I was so close. I used to either walk or cycle in at times. The roads aren't that great from that perspective, but on occasion I did cycle in and walk in. But generally, it's just a couple of miles up the road.
And so one of the things is that you've learned a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, Formula One it must be at the cutting edge of leadership.
Indeed. I mean, it's known for being the cutting edge of technology in particular, being a technology-enabled sport. But that in itself drives innovation in all sorts of different areas of the organization, and leadership being one of those, yeah.
Because, I mean, in my notes from, you talked about leadership, teamwork, communication, all of those things. And if you think about the how you're talking about sub-second responses.
Precisely. And I mean, it's a very high pressure, high intensity organization. It just by virtue of the sport. I've worked across various different organizations throughout my career, and you tend to find that the nature of the business takes on almost the speed of which its products are moving in some ways, and nothing moves faster from an innovation perspective than F1, really. So lots of high pressure, lots of high speed, and perception of performance wherever you go. You have to be there to perform, and that sort of gets itself into all sorts of areas, from leadership through to technologies, ways of working, how to drive the culture, how to communicate more effectively. All of those things are lessons that can be learned, and that's what I've loved doing over the years, is taking those lessons and helping other people apply them for themselves.
Yeah, I remember there was I can't remember who it was, when there was a corporate entertainment where they had a car, and they basically taught you how to change the tires on the car.
Yep.
And then, of course, when you see it done on the Silverstone or on the track, it's, I don't know, was it 7 seconds or something?
Yeah.
And most of the people, when you gave them a quick training course, I think they got, was it 30-40 seconds or something like that?
So we would have that in my time in McLaren. I've helped teams and organizations run through that specific example. Changeovers and quick changeovers have always been a thing, particularly in the world of manufacturing, where I've got a lot of background as well. But then the F1 example has always been the sort of epitome. The pit stop is the epitome of a changeover. And it's just great to actually get your hands, as you say, your hands actually on a tire, work together as a team, and go through that process of learning what makes a difference. How do you communicate? How do you perform and learn from others? So on the track, the record at the moment for the actual tire change is sub 2 seconds.
Right.
Which I believe either Red Bull or Williams hold at this moment in time. But it's actually interesting that they got so fast that the focus is, yes, let's do it fast, but let's do it consistent as well.
Right.
So it's about understanding that risk versus reward of performance as well. Do you want to go for a very high risk, but you get the very peak performance, or do you reduce that risk, maybe minimize the performance a little bit, but have a better understanding, a better confidence that you will achieve the performance that you're after?
Because if the risk is that you do it completely wrong, and then it's not sub 2 seconds, it's then.
Yeah, it's then 8-10 seconds, which doesn't sound much, but is disastrous in the big scheme of things. Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about in the preparation was about small data.
Yes.
You said it was one of those things where the penny dropped,
Yeah.
which was like, because I come from a background of in a way big data.
Yep.
So the company I used to work for is a partner of the Red Bull team.
Right.
It's right across the driver's chest, and I'm still connected with people from there, so I understand what they're doing. But it was also interesting for you about the importance of actually it's the smallest data set.
Indeed. And big data and the big data approach has some advantages, and if you've got the resources to take that approach, then it can be good for you. But it comes with risk, because correlation does not necessarily equal causation. You can read too much into patterns in data if you're not really understanding what it's all about. Whereas the small data approach comes from the fact that if you think about a Formula One car, you can get more and more data off a Formula One car. They get lots off it already, believe me. But you can get more data, but it comes at a cost, because you add a sensor to that car in order to capture the data and telemetry to transmit that data to actually do something about it. So you have to think of that return on investment view. What's the cost of the weight of that sensor versus the value that you're going to get off the back of it? And if you then translate that into the more generic view, where people are working in business or just working for themselves, whatever they're doing, data is out there. There's worlds and seas of data out there, and people are drowning in data. So actually, by taking a different approach and putting data last, you can actually focus on what's the smallest data set that I need to support insights that help my people deliver action that drives results. And that's the sort of bottom-up approach of what the rapid framework that I've have developed is.
That's like if we're a small business. So if we take what we've learned in Formula One and then apply that, I'm a CEO of a small business. We've got 15 or so people. Then as a CEO, I should be looking at what's the minimum data set that I need to, in effect, run the company.
Indeed. I mean, and there's two angles to it, particularly if you're thinking from a CEO perspective. One is the cost. Generally, you might be looking at a system to capture some of that data, maybe do something with it. But in reality, that's getting cheaper and cheaper by the day.
Yeah.
The bigger cost, in my mind, is the cognitive load on your people. If you start to think, more and more data will equal better and better performance, if it's just I'm starting with data, let's see what we can do by getting more and more data, then what you will find is people will become, this great term, infobesity. They become infobese. There's the gouging on.
I'm going to write that down. Paul.
Yeah, it's a term I came across a while back. It's consuming so much data that it's actually bad for you. And bad for you in the sense that it doesn't help you perform and make good decisions. And so by focusing on what's the smallest data set that I actually need, and specifically I need to drive insights, and those are, what insights do my people need in order to help them make the best decisions. And there's a difference between insights and information, and insights and information and data. And in my view, that is, the data is the what. It's the facts and figures that describe a situation. The information gives you more context. And typically in an organization, it's full of information. It's reports, it's graphs, it's it's sales figures and things like that. That's all information. But actually, people have to do something with that, or bring different information sets together in order to generate insights that help them make the best decisions. So I encourage a lot of people to think about move away from information and bring that information together in a way that it helps people make a better decision.
Andrew, who's one of our regular listeners and watchers, has said, "Good afternoon, gents." Thank you, Andrew. Elite sports people require elite management and elite workforce.
Indeed, yeah. It's the elite sport of Formula One is focused on the driver. That's what you see, and maybe you see the team a bit more, but actually there's a whole huge team sitting behind behind them everyone from the logistics team, from getting the cars and the people around the world, through to the cleaning staff and the catering staff that help people actually be at their best and perform at their best in the environment they're in. So
because the British cycling team, they found out that people got colds from the mattresses or stuff, didn't they? So they actually there's an official hotel they have to go to, but they drive up and they fumigate the rooms that the cyclists are going to go in, and they have their own mattresses and equipment that basically goes into the
No, it's a great story about elite performance and understanding what it takes, but understanding the risks around it. If I don't manage these things that I think are out of my control, but actually there are certain things that I can do to minimize the risk. And in their case, it's very much a people sport. So if your people are off for whatever reason on the day, they're off the top of their game, and that could be anything from a poor night's sleep to food poisoning to anything. So it's actually, you can pay attention to these things and minimize the risks around them.
So you've got a 5-point rapid model, haven't you, around small data?
Exactly, and that's.
You want to walk us through that?
Yeah, and I guess I did it in reverse a little bit earlier on, but it's that's how you look at from a data perspective. If you start off, and when I work with people, it's like, okay, what are the results you're trying to drive? And then, are you really clear on what those results are and what they mean to yourself and the context of your organization? Then the next level is A, for action. What are those things that you have at your disposal that you can do something about, that push and pull the levers of your organization and impact results? Anything from policies to procedures, practices, maybe the way in which you can do different changeovers in your production lines, or you can have different parameters around your sales opportunities. So they're all things that you can do from an action perspective. The P level is people. So there's a whole range of things you can learn about your people, how they work together. Have you got the right people in the right places? But focused on the right people for the actions that you're focusing on that give you the results that you're trying to drive. And then the I level is insights. And that's that piece of, am I giving my people the right insights that help them make the best decisions in order to move forward? And then D, that is the small data approach. D for data. What's the smallest data set that helps me deliver the insights that I need? And that's the real crux of it, is when you work on what insights do people need in order to make best decisions, you can then focus on actually what is the data that I need. Because it's, once you understand the insights, you can say there's certain data feeds I need in order to generate those insights. And these are the things.
So do you have any examples?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of examples from the world of F1, but if you want me to talk through that, or more of a practical application,
let's do a couple. One of F1 and one not F1.
Yeah, I mean, if we work through the F1 example, you start off with sort of the championship points. That's the results that you're trying to drive, but you've also got to think about the context of I've got to do that within certain guidelines, certain rules and regulations. So I need to do it within the FIA regulations, but I also need to do it in a way that it relates to my strategic objectives. So McLaren, very big on sustainability. So I don't just want to get the championship points. I want to get them in the context of sustainability and fan engagement, those things that are really important to your business. So once you understand that, you can start to say, right, what are all the actions that I can do? And it might be around the car design, the aerodynamics, the powertrain, things like that. Or there might be actions around your strategies. What sort of strategies do you take? Do you take more of a high risk strategy or a low risk strategy? Those are all different actions and things that you can decide on. But the classic one is pitting. When you're in operation, in the thick of it, the decision to pit is one of the critical actions. So if we take that and start to say, right, what's the next level, the people element, then who do I need in those key positions that make decisions on whether or not to pit?
And the pit could be, it's raining and you started off on dry tires and you need to change the wet tires or something like that.
Yeah, because you start off with a plan, and like all plans, they're all good until you get punched in the face.
As Mike Tyson said, it's a plan's great until you get punched in the face.
Precisely. So you need people who can react to that and to take action. And so you look for people who are clear and concise in their communication. Decisive is a real key important thing. And they've got to be able to ingest all of this data to make a decision, often in an unclear world, because you're never going to have complete data. So you can actually make sure these are the capabilities I need in my people. So let's make sure I've got the right people who are there. And then you can say, right, what insights do people need? So if I'm looking to pit, for instance, I need to know or be able to predict or have a viewpoint on, if I pit now, where do I come out in traffic? If I pit now, am I going to have to pit again by the end of the race? Or, so these are critical insights that inform your decision. So this is where the modeling and the simulation and the big data churning goes on in the background, and it's constantly giving that viewpoint of where my predicting would come out if we did pit right now. And then the smallest data set is just what data is required in order to generate those insights. So it's like position on track. You might need some weather data. You might need some competition data. Where are they on track? Where are they likely to be? And so that's an example of working it through in the F1 space. I worked through an example with a large public sector organization with a global challenge on recruitment. And so it was like, what are the results you're trying to drive from a recruitment perspective around quality of people in the right positions and all the rest of it? What actions can you take? Well, our recruiting policies. We can look at the resources that we have. We've got a limited recruitment team, but actually, where do we put them in the world? That's a key action. We can focus their efforts on one region or another, depending on where the criticality is. So that's around how have I got the right people in order to be able to do that? The insights that they need, that was helping them move from simple data sets and reports through to actually, how do you visualize some of this? Can you actually take if you're taking global decisions, put it up on a global map and say, my high risk, my high volume, these are the things here, so that we could actually look through it and say, actually, that helps us because we've got a lot of volume in the Asia region, for instance, but the Africa region is really critical. And because that's some 2 or 3 key roles that are, haven't been filled yet or whatever it might be. So maybe we take some resource from here, we move it there, and we spread that around there. So and the data we needed was, just based around that. So where are the positions that are open? What's the market data from how many people are out there, and the salaries and bits and pieces like that. But we were able to work through that. Instead of starting with, here's all the data we've got, we can say, right, we need this data to make our best decisions.
Two great examples, Paul. Any other? Because we've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I've done this work through actually with a lot of individuals, and there's something on my website. It's a completely free resource on a few videos on career development using that rapid framework as well. So, what are the results you want to drive from a career move? For instance, are you after more money, better quality of life?
Purpose,
whatever that, linked to purpose, whatever that might be. So you can get clear on that. You've got the actions that you can take. So what can you do in order to find out more about certain roles, or find out where the roles are or what's out there? The world of work may have changed a lot for people who have been in the same position for a number of years. So actually, you need to understand what you can do. Is it LinkedIn? Do I go on TikTok now? Well, what do I do?
Yep.
And then the people side of it is, who are the people who can support you? It might be, from an individual perspective, your spouse, your family, a loved one who can support you there. But it might be a career coach, somebody who can advise you, mentor you. And then, what insights do you need in order to make those decisions? And the insights might be specific to the role itself. For instance, like I want to know more about how much travel is there per year, and where is that, and is it during the week or the weekends? That has a big effect on my life. So if that's the key insight that's going to help me make a decision, then I need to get hold of that data. And I can get hold of that data either through what's available right now, or that feeds into the questioning. That wonderful question when you go to speak to someone about a job, like, any questions for me? You go, oh, not really. Well, actually, you can be really clever with that and say, yes, I need these insights. So please, can you provide me with this sort of data, or the closest approximation that you have, so that I can make the best decision possible for me. And that's the sort of thing where you can apply that model to all sorts of different scenarios, from organizations to public sector companies, all the way through to the individual.
Yeah, I can see, I can visualize the public sector organization that you were talking about in terms of those sort of things. And, you know, in a way, is it any different? You know, if we have if there's an impact in terms of where we're sourcing our skills from, and now in current, they actually may need to actually have feet on the ground. But from a business perspective, we could be recruiting people because they can work from home. But ultimately, you know, nowadays we can get the best resources because we're not reliant on people being necessarily being in with 30 miles of the office.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, it opens up all sorts of different options available to you.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on and talking about that, about high performance F1 and small data. It's fascinating.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
I mean, there's so much we can learn from Formula One. I know it's one of those subjects. I know for some people Formula One isn't interesting. I must admit, I'm not a big Formula One fan. I don't particularly.
Nor am
I don't particularly watch it. I went to Silverstone once, and it was just too noisy for me.
Right.
And and it rained as well, as you tend to get with Silverstone. But it from a business perspective, I mean, as Andrew said, you know, elite sports people require elite management, elite workforce, and what the F1 experience does is it gives that element of elite leadership.
Yeah. And that's why I say I've never called myself an F1 fan, partly because I'm nowhere near as fanatic as a lot of people out there, but also it wasn't my passion growing up. I do follow things more now, but I've always been interested in the performance element of it, and that's you know, it was an amazing opportunity to work with those guys.
Yes. So Paul, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, I mean, the best place, if you go to paulteasdale.co.uk, then you know, there is one of the first things you'll get there is a little pop-up box for set up a free 30-minute chat with me. I'd love to hear about your thoughts, your opportunities, your challenges, and or go visit LinkedIn and find me there. And I'll always happy to connect and chat with people.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on, and thank you for people that have watched or listened, and thanks, Andrew, for your as always for your comments.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks everybody.